Hello everybody, my name is Kara, and today I'm here with the Myers-Briggs Book Tag. I think it's just called the Briggs Book Tag, actually. It was originally created by Jaded Reader, and I was tagged by the lovely Katie from A Sea of Tomes, and I will link both of them down below. So all of the questions are based off of which personality type you fall into, so let's get started. The first thing you have to do is either find out or remember your personality type, and I am INFJ, which, by the way, is the least common personality type, but apparently in the book world, like every other person is an INFJ. Introvert. You can be outgoing, but need to recharge with some calming solitude. Where is your favorite place to read and unwind? Why is this little oasis where you choose to go? And I don't really have like a specific place anymore that I can kind of retreat to read. I do like reading in my bed, and I also like reading on the couch in my living room, but my ideal spot would be on that couch with a blanket while it's gently raining outside, because I just feel like that's the perfect atmosphere, and with no noise except maybe very low level background noise like the rain, because I used to be able to like read while the TV was on or while other people were like listening to music or something, and now I just have no noise tolerance at all while I'm reading. Also, I don't really enjoy reading in public that much. I can't really get cozy unless I'm like at home. Intuition. Some books are meant to be understood and others are meant to be explored. What book or character stands for an idea that is deeply meaningful to you? And I chose a book, and that is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I reread this relatively recently for the first time in a really long time, and I think I love and appreciate it even more now that I'm an adult. And the thing that this book stands for me, and that I think is very much a theme in the book, this isn't terribly creative that this is what it reminds me of, but is the idea that love has tangible strength, that it's something that actually creates change in the world in a very literal way. I think it's definitely important as an intangible thing. I think it's one of the things that gives meaning to our lives and our relationships and to us as people. But I also think in a very literal sense, love has the power to cause things to happen in the world in a really big and important way. Like, it's not just this kind of a mushy-gushy thing that people can just write off. I think it's really important because it can inspire people to do things that they never thought they were capable of. It can actually lead to some really bad things when people are willing to sacrifice things they shouldn't. I just think it's a really powerful force, and I don't like the fact that, in my experience, it seems like we are much harder on books that have a clear theme if it's a positive one than if it's a negative one. Like, I see a lot of people read and review this book and say that it's way too obvious, you know, and I understand that. I know that strong thematic elements are very hit or miss, they're not for everyone, but I don't like the fact that when it's a very negative message, we don't seem as prone to calling out the author for making it too heavy-handed. Feeling. Not everything needs to be realistic. Where is the fun in a world with limits? Which fantasy would you find so atmospheric you slip inside and never want to leave? Put simply, a book with good vibes. I'm going with the Enchanted Sonata by Heather Dixon Walwork. This is sort of a Nutcracker / Pied Piper retelling, and the majority of it takes place in a magical land, and this sounds so lovely, and even though there's definitely conflict in this book, I think it's definitely one of the fantasy books I've read where I genuinely would want to spend time here, like without fearing for my life. Just like all of the scenery and like the bakery and just so much about the setting just sounds so beautiful and lovely and charming, and this would just be like a really wonderful place to like vacation or to live for a while. Judging. All play and no work leads to chaotic disorder and anarchy. How do you structure and balance your reading, booktube, and personal life to better use your time? So the short answer is like, I wish I were better at doing that, but there are a few things that I have found that really help me. Like, I pretty much have to film on the same days every week, and it's kind of nice in a way to have that schedule, and I always make sure to film more than one video if possible, especially since my filming time is so limited. I don't find the personal life to be a difficult thing to balance for me, but the thing that I do run into trouble with sometimes is trying to balance booktube and actually reading. I do read a lot. I don't think I'm like failing at that necessarily, but a lot of times I do end up having to make the choice between, am I going to film or edit or even watch booktube videos versus am I going to read, which is a really hard decision to make when it's like we're people who love reading, but we also love booktube and supporting each other. It's like the two hobbies are very interconnected, so it can be kind of stressful to have to choose between them, but I'm trying to get better about doing that and having like set times where I will only read or I will only do booktube stuff, whatever that happens to be. And finally, the last question is to actually answer the question that fits your specific personality type, and INFJ is the counselor. Yes, we're a bit odd, but we're also filled with intuition and empathy. What is a book you would recommend to a friend having a hard time? You can have a friend in mind if that helps. And I think this actually depends like for one thing on which friend it is, but also on like the specific kind of hardship someone is going through. Like there are some things that happen to me where it's like I want to be completely wrapped up in a world where the problems are much, much worse than mine, and there's some kinds of stress where it's like I just want light and fluffy and happy. So I kind of erred on the side of light and fluffy and happy, and I'm going to suggest Enthusiasm by Polly Shulman. This is a really fun, sweet book, and it has a lot of elements of Jane Austen and also some Shakespeare. I think there's a little bit of As You Like It in there as well, and I read this like several years ago at this point, so I don't remember too much about it, but I remember really, really enjoying it, and it just being like a really feel-good kind of book. I actually want to reread that soon. I guess I should have done that before I recommended it, but... And then if I wanted to suggest something that is kind of wholesome and sweet, but also more serious, or it kind of takes your mind off your own problems, I think a good middle ground between those would be the Lara Jean series by Jenny Han. I still need to read this last book actually, but I feel like there's a really great balance of fun rom-com elements and also really meaningful and sometimes very serious topics like family relationships and grief, and just there's a lot of kind of deeper things going on in these books, so I think that it's kind of a good balance between like I want to be reading about somebody else's problems and also I just want something light and sweet and fluffy. Okay everybody, so that was the Myers-Briggs book tag. Thank you again Katie for tagging me, and thank you to Jaded Reader for creating such an extensive and interesting and fun tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!